Today I wanted to talk about the pros of owning a laundromat. In another video, I'm going to do the cons, but today I'm going to do the pros. And one of the first pros is you really get to know your customers. I'm shooting this Sunday morning before we open. And I bet you $20 I know the first customer that's going to be here and also what machine he's going to use. And when you have a lot of time together, like you do with the customers when they're waiting, you really develop kind of relationships. You know about their jobs, their kids, they know about you. A lot of times we have regular customers and I can see like their laundry bag and I'll come in and I'm like, oh, Brandon, I'd see he has a drop off. So that's really nice that you get to know the people, because in a lot of businesses, you just have a very quick transaction with them and they might be very nice, but nonetheless, you don't really get to know the customers. Another great thing about laundromats is a lot of the customers do their own labor. For example, we do a lot of wash and fold and pick up at our location. So not every laundromat is going to be the same, but for us, about 40% of our revenue is self-serve. So I could sit back here theoretically and just make videos while the customers do all the work. Laundromats also have a high return on investment. The typical return on investment for a laundromat can be anywhere between 20 to 30%, with as high as 35%. And just to give you an idea, the average restaurant has a return on investment of about 10 to 11%. So even an below average running laundromat can make as much as a well-run restaurant. So if you run it correctly, you will get your money back, plus some. A laundromat is also simple to run. I don't want to say there's nothing to learn, but the learning curve isn't huge. What I do recommend is when somebody first purchases or opens a laundromat is that they take a couple of weeks just to learn the building, the quirks, just how everything runs in their store, learn their customers. But after those first few weeks, you pretty much should have everything down. There's not a lot of moving parts. This isn't like running like General Motors. Laundromat, even if you have employees, you're not going to have 30 or 40. You might have 2 or 3. A larger laundromat might have maybe up to 10. That would probably be including delivery and pickup. So it's not like it's a large organization. Which leads me into my next point while I'm talking about it, is that you don't have to quit your day job to own a laundromat. Now, it's not quite as passive as maybe is led to believe on YouTube and in articles. I think a lot of that is clickbait. I also see a lot of the passive income come in laundromats for sale. For example, if you go on a website and you're looking to buy a laundromat, they'll often say, absentee owner and the place nets $300,000 a year. And my first reaction is, if you don't even work there and it makes $300,000 a year in profit, why would you even sell it? But that's for another video. It's not 100% passive, okay? You do have to put some work in, but again, the good thing is when I first bought this place, I worked 45 hours a week, plus travel back and forth to work for somebody else. And I was still able to buy this, do my due diligence, learn the business. And I probably worked both for the first 6 months that I have it. So that's the great thing about a laundromat also, is that you can build your assets and personal wealth while still keeping your day job. So that leads me into my next point. With such a high return on investment of 20 to 30%, and even if you're at 15, that's still probably above average for most businesses, laundromats have a high survival rate. You don't have to be Steve Jobs or Bill Gates to run a laundromat. So even if you're just average at business, about 95% of laundromats survive past 5 years. Now you look at some other businesses and the survival rates, I don't have it off the top of my head for like restaurants, but I can guarantee you they don't last like laundromats do. So even if you're just an average business person and have an average laundromat, you should have no problem making a small profit and being able to pay the bills. Laundromats also have almost no receivables. If you don't know what a receivable is, it's money that you would bill out to a customer. You send them an invoice, and then they will either pay by credit card or send you a check. So you have to wait for that money to come in, which is very normal in business. But in laundromats, you're pretty much paid for everything as you do it when the customer picks up, or they might even prepay. Now, the little bit of receivables you would have, I have a couple of corporate clients, and they pay every month by invoice. But for the other 98.5% of my business, everybody pays when the service is done, when they pick it up. Which flows right into my next part, where you have steady cash flow. That's one of the great things about laundromats. I looked at another laundromat. I wound up not buying it because the owner couldn't pull the trigger. But one of the things that he said is, even if it's like slow in the beginning of the week, you look up and by, Sunday night, the business is there. Okay. It's almost always the same every week. And that's one of the great things about this industry. It's very consistent because everybody has to wash their clothes every week. So if they couldn't make it in on Monday, it doesn't mean that their dirty clothes went anywhere. It just means that they'll have to come in on Tuesday or Wednesday. So that's one of the things, too, that I have found. And even my youngest son, who does work here, I remember the one day I came in and I'm like, where's all the clothes to be washed? Well, why don't we have any? And he's like, don't worry about it. By the end of the week, we'll be bombarded. And sure enough, by the end of the week, we had piles and piles of clothes to wash. So even if you have a slow day, it evens out, and it's extremely consistent. And that's a great thing. So you have no receivables, really, and you have a consistent cash flow. And when you have a consistent cash flow, it makes it very easy to project out your numbers, because you already know pretty much, what your labor is going to be, your utilities. If you have that consistent cash flow, you're using a consistent amount of utilities, so you're able to figure those out. And also your rent is steady. So it makes it very easy for you to do your numbers with a laundromat. Also, your laundromat's not really affected by seasonality. Again, people have to wash their clothes every week. Now, one caveat to that might be that, during the summer, people might take vacations. You have a little less volume. Another thing is, let's say they do wash and fold. Okay, I'm in New Jersey, so I'm in a long sleeve shirt. In August, people are wearing t-shirts, tank tops, shorts. So if they do wash and fold, it might weigh less. So you're processing a little less in volume. But it's not like you've lost customers. So even during the different seasons, your customer flow is normally very steady. And the last thing is that laundromats are pretty much recession proof. I don't like when people say they are 100% recession proof, because I'm not sure that any business really is. But during good times and bad, you always have to wash your clothes. Okay? In bad times, even if you don't like washing your clothes, you're probably not going to give up the wash and fold service, because it's not something that you like to do. So you're going to keep the service. For the self-serve customers, they still have to wash their clothes too. Okay? So unlike a restaurant, and I hate to pick on restaurants, but like a theme park, where you might say, money's tight, do we really need to go? You're still going to find the money to come to the laundromat. So even in bad times, laundromats remain a very consistent business. And the last thing I'll say is that we're not really dependent on the weather either. I have a friend down the street. He owns a car wash, and he came in, luckily, he's a customer of ours too. He came in and, we were talking, And, I asked him how business was, and he was like, in 13 years, this is the worst January I've had. And again, we didn't have the greatest weather here in New Jersey. We had a spot of 5 consecutive days where it rained, which is not good for a car wash. We had a snowstorm the other day, so if I actually showed you out the window, you'd see snow on the ground. Again, nobody's using his car wash, and I felt really bad. But I know for us, for January, we were up 12% over last January. Because again, if it snows, maybe that day of the snow, we're going to be a little slower. But again, the great thing is you still got to wash your clothes. So if it snowed on Saturday and you didn't want to trek out, you're going to come in on Sunday and do your clothes, So laundromats, they're a great business. But do stay tuned for my next video, because that's going to be on the cons of laundromats. As great as it is, any business is going to have some things that you just need to be aware of. And those I think are important too, and I want to share them with you. So I really hoped that you liked this video. If you did, smash the subscribe button, so this way you get them all the time. And also hit the like button, leave a comment. I do respond, and I thank you for watching.